Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Grunke. I'm the CEO of Global Chamber. Today is a bit of a special day because we're talking about something that's extra special. Global business is special to all of us. And today we'll be talking about a specific topic around global leadership and business, and that is your own personal success and how to get more of it. That's the end result, I believe, of what we're going to be talking about today. This is something, positive intelligence, that I was introduced to by Connie Kadinsky, who's our Global Chamber Phoenix Advisory Board Chair. And then subsequently, Malia Monaco has introduced more about it, and she offered this coursework to both myself and to Cesar Trabanco of Global Chamber so that we could understand it better. And we have been meeting weekly as part of Global Chamber, and we always tack on some additional comments around how this is impacting our lives. We'll talk more about how that has later in the program, but in the meantime, we have a very special guest of Natalie Siston. Natalie, I think I met you when Shirzad Chamine was speaking a month or two ago, and you were helping to facilitate that. That was the first time that I saw him live, which, if Zoom is live, I guess that's live. It was really an additional opening of my mind because I've been doing this program every day. I've been listening to him and his book. I think it's 11-hour audio book on my bike while I was riding. I've spent a lot of time with Shirzad, and then to see him in person and live and to answer questions was a revelation, and I was really excited. And so when I met you, I was very excited to be able to learn more about all of this. And today we're all going to learn more. So thank you for taking the time to speak at Global Chamber. How would you like to proceed?
Doug, we can dive right in. This will be a presentation that will hopefully be very insightful and leave people wanting more and wanting to learn more about how they can improve their mental fitness. So if you're ready, I can dig in and we can take it away.
That's great. How would you like us to interact during the session? We know this is going to be recorded and people will be watching the recording of this, but we've got some people here live today as well. Should we sit back and watch? Should we interact at some point? What would you like to do there?
Sit back, relax, watch, and I will let you know at the appropriate points where I would like your input and your ideas and your thoughts. And we will also have time at the end for Q&A. So I would say save the questions till the end, because usually a question you have might be answered in the next segment. So relax, enjoy. I look forward to bringing you some really great insight here today.
Looking forward to it. Please go ahead.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much on behalf of the entire team at Positive Intelligence for having us here today. As Doug said, my name is Natalie Siston, and I am the Program Experience Leader at Positive Intelligence. And my job is to help bring the Positive Intelligence program to organizations and communities around the entire world. So the fact that you are the Global Chamber means a lot to me, it means a lot to us that we can truly be expanding this work to all corners of the world. My journey with Positive Intelligence began in January of 2020. And I'll come back to my experience throughout the presentation today. But at the time, I thought I was doing pretty good. I was a corporate leader in coaching and leadership development. I was the mom of 2 young girls. I was a good wife, a good sister, a good daughter. And I thought I was holding everything together really well. And then I was introduced to Positive Intelligence, and I realized I'd been lying to myself, that my negative mental patterns had actually ingrained themselves in my mind and my body so much I couldn't even recognize them. And within 6 weeks, I was able to not only unearth those negative thinking patterns, but transfer it to positive thinking patterns. And in a series of very, very fortunate events, I was introduced to the team at Positive Intelligence and came to work for them starting in 2020. And it gives me no greater pleasure than to bring this message to new people each and every day. So with that, I'm going to dive in and we're going to go through this content today. I hope you find it very enlightening and supportive on your own personal and professional journey today. Before I start sharing my slides, I'm going to put out my first question to each and every one of you. And this is what I would love for you to answer in the chat for me. So I want you to, the first thing that comes to mind is what I would like you to put in there, which is, what is the number one challenge or stressor that you have right now in your life? And this may be a challenge or stress in your professional part of your life. It might be in your personal life. I don't care, but go ahead and in the chat, please share that number one challenge or the top stress. And after I see a few of these come in, I'll read off for those of you watching the recording so you can get a flavor of what your peers are dealing with. And if you're watching the recording, please jot on a piece of paper what this challenge is for you. It'll be important to see that in front of you as we're going through the session today. We have funding. Not enough time to do it all. Oh my goodness, yes. A big home renovation which has my environment disrupted. I'm building a new home right now. Robin, let's talk. Spending more time with my son. Money exchange, time. These are all very, very common challenges and stressors that we face. And today I want you to think about that challenge and stress as we're walking through this entire framework. So let's go ahead and dive into boosting your mental fitness. We're talking about improved performance, relationships, and wellness today. Today's journey, we're going to take 5 stops. The first is to talk about research and brain science, which usually everyone finds fascinating and allows you to understand that this has firm basis in research. We'll talk about saboteurs. Then we'll learn and practice together a brain activation technique. Then we'll learn about something called sage powers. And finally, we'll wrap up by talking about the Positive Intelligence program that will follow this journey and have Q&A. So with that, let's dive into this research and science, and let's hinge together on the definition of mental fitness that we use at Positive Intelligence. And that is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. This seems like a pretty simple definition at its surface, and it can go much, much deeper depending on how far you want to go. We know that the impact of being mentally fit is that you experience peak performance, greater peace of mind, and healthier relationships. And all of this is so incredibly important in the complex world we're living in right now, where we're facing challenges and stress. We're trying to improve innovation. We're trying to be more resilient. We're trying to have healthier relationships. By boosting this mental fitness, we can impact all of that. Positive intelligence is grounded in 4 different areas of science. We have neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, positive psychology, and performance science. Secondary research was done in all of these areas to come up with the proprietary positive intelligence framework. And the primary research that was done is shared in the book Positive Intelligence, and it's been done with hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams, Stanford students, world-class athletes, and over 500,000 participants from 50 countries. This is really important to understand because it points out that positive intelligence is not a North American construct, but it truly is grounded from a global footprint of people participating in the research and in the program. All of this is summarized in Shirzad Chamine's New York Times bestselling book, Positive Intelligence, and there Shirzad is right now on your screen with his smiling face. You'll hear me refer to him quite a bit today, so it's nice for you to see him, and Doug also, spoke of him at the beginning. The primary research that was conducted was called factor analysis. What Shirzad wanted to understand was what is getting in the way of our peak performance, our relationships, and our wellness? Why can't we nail this? We have hundreds of books and thousands of hours of podcasts and other types of development programs. Why don't they stick? Through factor analysis, which is where you're able to get to the root cause and radically simplifies where he found his answer. So if we're comparing this to art, when we're talking about colors, an artist's palette may have hundreds of colors on it, but all she needs to get started is red, blue, and yellow. So all you need to get started on your journey to improve performance and professional development is to understand the factors that build up our mental fitness. There are three core muscles at the root of our mental fitness. The first is called the saboteur interceptor muscle. The second is our sage, and the third is self-command. And this is what we're going to walk through today. So you'll understand not only what this muscle is, but how you can strengthen that muscle starting the moment you leave this session today. There's no need to wait. You'll receive a simple 4-step process that will help you learn how to strengthen and use all of these muscles. In terms of the brain science, what we know is that we have 10 saboteurs. This also came through the research, the factor analysis research. So we have the 3 muscles. We also have 10 negative thinking patterns called saboteurs. I'm going to speak a little bit about each one of those. And we have 5 sage powers or positive thinking patterns. We know they live in different parts of the brain. Our saboteurs tend to live in our brainstem, our amygdala. You might have heard of fight, flight, or freeze. In our limbic system, and in parts of our left brain, not our entire left brain. Our left brain has some good stuff going for it, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. But generally speaking, saboteurs would be in our left brain. Compare this to sage, which lives in our right brain and is located with our prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning area of our brain, and it's wired in our empathy circuitry. These saboteurs are sneaky. They motivate you through negative emotion. I imagine every day you have some motivational factor caused by a negative emotion, stress, fear, anger. You act on it. And after today, you'll have an even better sense of when that might be happening in your day. Versus the sage. Sage motivates you through positive emotions, love, connection, innovation, creativity. All of those positive emotions can also help us move forward. If I had to pick one slide that I would give this whole presentation, say this is the most important thing to take away, I would actually vote for this slide. So if you're taking notes or if you want to grab a screenshot, grab it of this one. Our saboteurs might generate success, but not happiness. And you'll see why in a moment. Whereas our sage generates our highest success and sustained happiness. I know which side I want to pick, and hopefully you are gathering which side can help you more too. Now that we've ventured past the research and the brain science, it's time to talk about the saboteurs. It's time to talk about these negative thinking patterns. And what I need to tell you before I take you to what I call saboteur school is that there are two important lessons to know. So the first thing is that saboteurs lie to us every day, and they tell us, you need me. You need me in order to be successful. And our saboteurs are usually our greatest strength taken too far. Our greatest strength taken too far. So keep those 2 things in mind as I go through the next part of this presentation, because there are times when you're going to say, oh, I think that's a good thing. You'll just remind yourself they're lying to you, and it's when it's taken too far. The first saboteur, the master saboteur, is called the judge. Now, we have a saboteur assessment that each and every one of you can take. And Malia, if you can throw that in the chat, that would be great for those who have not been able to take the saboteur assessment. But if you have taken the saboteur assessment, what you will know is that the judge did not appear on your results. And the reason the judge did not appear on your results is because each and every one of us has a judge saboteur. The judge is usually this booming voice that's telling us we're messing up. We're never going to get it right. They're going to figure us out. So for many, many, many people, this is very loud. It's what wakes you up in the middle of the night. It keeps you second guessing yourself every single day. For other people, the judge is sneakier. And it might be really quiet, sit on your shoulder and whisper to you, don't speak up, stay quiet. They're going to figure you out. Your judge has had a powerful place in your life, probably started in your childhood and had very, very good intentions of protecting you, keeping you out of harm. But in your current state of life, you don't need the judge anymore. And this judge is affecting you on 3 different levels. The first is judging of self. This is pretty easy for all of us to understand because we are frequently beating ourselves up and we hear terms like inner critic and gremlin. And we understand what judging ourselves means. The other 2 modes are also important to think about. The second one is judging others, constantly blaming other people for all the stress and negativity in your life, putting it out to other people versus inward on yourself. And the third mode of the judge is a little harder to pinpoint. We don't think about this one as much, but my hope is after sharing with you about it, you'll have awareness of when this mode of the judge sneaks up on you. And this is a judge of events and circumstance. And this mode makes your happiness conditional. I will be happy when this home renovation is complete. I will be happy when I get this funding. I will be happy when I find more time in the day. The judge never lets us be content with what our current circumstances are and forces us to think about how we will be happy only when we've achieved or gotten or accomplished certain things. So walking away from today, you have your first self-awareness check is to say, when is this judge sneaking up on me, or maybe not even sneaking up on me, but very prevalent? And what mode is it operating on? Is it operating on the self? Is it operating out of others? Or is it operating on this events and circumstance? And we call that the intercepting. So you catch it and you intercept it. I like to just picture myself grabbing that baseball in the air and recognizing it. That's the first step on our journey. Now, this judge does not act alone. This judge has 9 accomplice saboteurs. Now, you probably are only affected by 1, 2, or maybe 3 of these saboteurs. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to quickly go through each of these in alphabetical order. So if you're wondering when you're going to hear about yours, and I'm going to just hit on some highlights of each of these saboteurs. So if you've taken the assessment, you can really listen for any further nuance. And if you haven't taken the saboteur assessment, this is a great way for you to start taking notes like, that feels like me. Or maybe even assessing how other people in your life might be affected by these accomplice saboteurs. So with that, we'll dive through and start with the avoider saboteur. The avoider focuses on the positive and pleasant in an extreme way. It's always avoiding difficult and unpleasant tasks and conflicts. The avoider would just rather not step in to take action, would rather not step in to a conflict or a tough conversation. Why? They just want to pretend that there's nothing wrong, and they get the opposite in return. So the avoidance is actually what causes the greatest stress, because typically when you step in and you have the tough conversation, you step in and take the action you've been putting off, you feel a lot better. But the avoider would just rather not, and instead focus on that positive and pleasant. Almost diametrically opposite is the controller. The controller has an anxiety-based need to take charge and control situations and people's actions, and experience high anxiety and impatience when that's not possible. The controller can be very, very detrimental to relationships because they have a desire to get things done. They have a desire to make things happen. Once again, these are good traits, but when taken too far, that can erode relationships. It can decrease trust. And that puts you in a very, very challenging spot as a leader. Now we begin our trifecta of hypers. The first is hyperachiever. Before I even put any words on this slide, just look at this graphic. I have an arm full of trophies and I'm reaching for another one. That's the story of the hyperachiever, dependent on constant performance and achievement for self-respect and self-validation. Highly focused on external success, leading to unsustainable workaholic tendencies and loss of touch with deeper emotional and relationship needs. The way I like to think about the origin story of the hyperachiever is likely as a child, the hyperachiever might have brought a paper home from school and they got a sticker. 100% A+ with a sticker, and they showed it to their parents and they got praise and it was hung on the refrigerator. And from that moment forward, they said, wow, in order for me to get love and attention, I need to keep achieving. Only at a certain point in time, you can't hold any more trophies and you need to have deeper relationships in your life and focus on some of the inner rewards that your life can put forward for you. The next hyper is the hyper-rational. And the hyper-rational has an intense and exclusive focus on rational processing of everything, including relationships, and can be perceived as cold, distant, and intellectually arrogant. Likely someone with hyper-rational saboteur stepped into vulnerability at a certain point in time and it backfired on them. And from that point forward, they said, that's fine. I'll focus on black and white, right and wrong, yes or no. There's no gray area. I don't want to have to take people's emotions into consideration. Now, this would be great if we didn't live in a human-centric world, but we do. So this can be very off-putting. It can be very, very hard to form connections with other people. Our final hyper is the hyper-vigilant. And if I were to draw this picture, I would actually put a picture of a shoe on top of the head, because hypervigilant is always waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's continuous and intense anxiety about all the dangers and what could go wrong. It's vigilance that can never rest. It's constantly looking around every corner for what might go wrong. And once again, vigilance is good, but when it's causing extreme stress and anxiety, that's when we know we're in saboteur mode. Now we're up to the pleaser. Indirectly tries to gain acceptance and affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing, or flattering others. Loses sight of own needs and becomes resentful as a result. The pleaser thinks that in order to get love, they need to give love, that they simply can't be loved for who they are. And this causes a give, give, give mentality, which once again is wonderful. But there are two main negative outcomes of that type of action. It's completely losing sight of your needs, which can lead to burnout. And it's waking up one day realizing, when is it going to be my turn? And resentment. So the pleaser with great intentions will end up burning out with great resentment over time. The next is the restless with the 6 arms, because the restless is constantly in search of greater excitement in the next activity or constant busyness, rarely at peace or content with the current activity. Restless is go, 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 do, do, do. And the cause of this is one of two things. It could be FOMO, fear of missing out. I don't want to miss out what could be next, so I'm going to keep going and chasing. Or it could be the inability to sit with the current emotion. In order not to feel the emotion I'm feeling, just going to keep in constant motion. The stickler. Very simple description for the stickler: perfectionism and a need for order and organization taken too far. Crossing T's and dotting I's is good, but when it's waking you up in the middle of the night, it's keeping you on edge, leading to intense stress and anxiety, It's taken too far. I happen to have a high stickler saboteur, and I know that I'm caught up in the throes of negative emotion when I catch myself in my sent email box. First, I'll catch a gasp of air and say, did I send out the right thing? And 99.9% of the time, everything is fine. It's that darn 0.1% of the time that causes me to be in this anxiety swirl in moments. So if this is you, if you're like me with this, you got to learn to focus on the 80%, being good enough and letting the other just go and be. Our final saboteur on this saboteur school journey is the victim. The victim has emotional and temperamental as a way to gain attention and affection. It has an extreme focus on internal feelings, particularly painful ones. And the victim thinks this is the way to get attention, and how they receive love is by asking for help from other people. They simply can't receive that love for who they are in the world. So they'll focus on their internal negative emotions. So we've made it through saboteur school, which leads me to two very important questions. And before I put the first question on the screen, I want you to get ready to put your immediate reaction in the chat. I'm only going to have you chat the first answer because I want to get a lay of the land here. But go ahead and in chat answer this question. Are negative emotions good for you? Yes or no? That's all I want. No maybes. No, it depends. Are negative emotions good for you? Go ahead and put your gut reaction into the chat. So far, the yeses are winning. One more minute or one more second to get your vote in here. All right, yeses have it at a pretty good margin. Now, the next question you don't need to put in chat, but is a similar and related question. Is pain good for you? Okay, it's time for the drum roll moment. Negative emotions like pain are helpful for 1 second as an alert signal. Putting your hand on that hot stove, you're going to recognize immediately that that is painful, and you're going to release your hand from the stove. Negative emotions are helpful. They tell us to pay attention. That stress we experience, the fear we have, it's great. It gets us to take action, to pay attention, to pivot. But when we stay in negative emotion for more than 1 second, that is our saboteur. That's our judge or our accomplice saboteur getting in the way of our happiness and our fulfillment. So you got a chance to learn a little bit about the saboteur, and hopefully, like I said, you'll take the assessment so you can get a full download on what yours are. And now it's recognizing that when you're experiencing the negative emotion brought about by your saboteurs, it can be helpful for 1 second, and beyond that, you're sabotaged and you're being hijacked by your negative thinking patterns. So that's our first muscle. That's your intercepting. So once again, I'm going to just do this because moving forward from this moment, I want you to think of a physical action you can take. When you feel yourself in that negative emotion, what can you do to grab it and say, there it is. And now I'm going to teach you what you can do when you grab that negative emotion, because we want you to move beyond it. So we'll be practicing together a brain activation technique. We call these PQ reps. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, then we're going to do one together. So PQ stands for positive intelligent quotient, much like there's EQ for emotional intelligence and IQ for intelligence quotient. We have coined the term PQ. We call these PQ reps, and they're getting ourselves into a sensory experience in bits of time that can be as short as 10 seconds or up to 2 or 3 minutes. And what we're doing is we're disconnecting our negative thinking patterns and we're bringing ourselves into our positive thinking pattern. So I'm going to ask you all to do one with me. So if you want to sit straight in your chair or stand tall if you're standing, and do this with me. So if you would hold 2 fingertips together I want you to rub those two fingertips together with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on either finger. Congratulations, you just did your first PQ rep. Now, PQ reps can be done a number of different ways. That is a tactile PQ rep. You can also do tactile PQ reps by feeling each of your toes on the ground, by feeling your seat beneath you. You can also do them with your hearing. What's the farthest away sound you can hear? What's the closest sound you can hear? You can do them with your breathing, really focusing on your breath. You can do them with visuals, focusing intently on something that is in the distance for you to look at. The idea is to get yourself in this full sensory experience. So once again, you can disconnect from your negative thinking pattern and instead be in your positive thinking patterns. What we have done is our neural pathways are pre-wired to go to that negative thinking pattern, and we need a way to disconnect so we can then strengthen the neural pathways to our positive thinking patterns. And PQ reps are the technique that help us bridge that gap, that help deconstruct and help lessen that negative thinking pattern and strengthen that positive thinking pattern. So if you're someone who does meditation, you might be thinking, oh, this feels like meditation. PQ reps are meditation is a form of PQ repping. This is taken to its most basic level, because as you can imagine, you could be in the middle of a very stressful situation and you can be rubbing your fingers onto the table and no one would even know, but you're commanding your mind to settle. Whereas meditation, you typically need to go off into a quiet space for 5 or 10 minutes at a time. The beauty of these, they can be done in the moment for as short as 10 seconds at a time. So that is your brain activation technique, and that is how you build your self-command muscle. So you intercept that saboteur, and then you build up the self-command muscle. And what that leads to is strengthening of our sage powers. And the sage lives in the region of the brain that's associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, big picture thinking, operating from a sage perspective. And I know that you are all purpose-driven leaders bound toward innovation, bound toward empathy. You seek this in your life and in your work. And so if you can strengthen the sage, you can achieve all those outcomes you're hoping for in your personal and professional life. Now, I want to tell you a little about the sage perspective. And if you move forward into our program, you're going to learn a beautiful story that's going to connect you to this. But today, I'm just going to leave you with the idea that the sage perspective is that every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity. Even the greatest challenges we face in our life can be turned into a positive opportunity. And it takes a while to build the muscle to get the strength for every outcome to seem this way. But over time, as you strengthen your mental fitness, as you decrease that strength to your negative thought patterns and increase to your positive thought patterns, it becomes more and more possible. A way to bring this to life is to ask the following questions. So I'm going to set a quick scenario. So let's just say you've been working on a project. Everything seems to be going wrong. There's mistakes being made. There's disconnection. Things seem to be really, really frantic. So that's our situation we're dealing with, okay? And the question to ask yourself is, which is true? This is so bad. Oh my gosh, this project is failing. The business is going to fail. I'm going to fail. It's all going to be terrible. Or is the sage? This is a gift. We're going to learn from these mistakes. We're going to make our processes better. We're going to have even better outcomes because we're digging in deeper. Which perspective is true? You might be guessing this one, but whichever you believe becomes true. And right now, your brain might be pre-wired to say this is bad. But what we're wanting you to do is strengthen your sage so you can instead see that challenge as a gift. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's some good things going on in your left brain. You have amazing analytical powers in your left brain that has likely led to the success you see in your life and in your business and your professional endeavors. Now imagine if you're able to connect that strong analytical power with what we call 5 sage powers of empathize, explore, navigate, innovate, and activate. These are the 5 sage powers that you can start to activate. You intercept your negative saboteur, you do PQ reps, then you can pick a sage power to help you get through the challenge that you're facing. I'm going to do a very, very high level of what these sage powers are so you can start to put them to use for yourself moving forward from today. The first is empathize. The antidote to the judge is empathy. This is to deeply understand people's feelings, needs, and desires, including your own. It's having empathy for self, having empathy for others, and having empathy for events and circumstance. So if you're finding yourself extremely triggered by the judge or finding yourself very self-critical, bring yourself some empathy. It's the antidote to that negative emotion. And this is the most powerful and also for many of us, the most challenging sage power because we don't give ourselves enough grace. Explore power is next. This is where we can discover all the important factors contributing to the problem before deciding on solutions. This is extreme curiosity. This is having a child's mind of exploration, turning over every rock and being in full positive emotion as you're exploring. So that project that was going sideways, Explore Power could help you in positive emotion really look through all the factors that contributed to that specific circumstance and help you get to a positive outcome on the other side. Navigate Power, choosing a solution that aligns with your values, mission, and purpose. You are all purpose-driven leaders, so this power can be extremely powerful. And it's asking yourself at the end of my life, looking back, what truly matters? And you can ask yourself that to frame your values. You can also ask yourself that in the heat of the moment, in the heat of stress, what is actually worth worrying about in this moment? Usually when you use this power, you'll learn that most of what you're stressing out about today isn't going to matter in the long run. We have Innovate Power, generating the best possible solutions. The way we focus on Innovate Power at Positive Intelligence is by recognizing that other people we're working with are always 10% right. If you're in any conflict in a relationship or stuck, it's an ability to brainstorm, identify what you like about what other people are doing and saying, and adding to those ideas. So if you're in a brainstorming session, it's taking this framework. If someone shares an idea, then someone says, what I like about that idea is, and they say what they like about the idea. And the idea it brings for me is the following. You can have a snowball effect of amazing idea generation because you're focused on other people in a way. You're not trying to negate, you're not trying to cut down, you're not trying to say that won't work. Pure positive emotion. And finally, we have Activate Power, where you're taking fearless, calm, clear-headed, laser-focused action. We are all amazing at taking action, and a lot of times it's driven by saboteur. It's driven by saboteur fear, saboteur anger. But this Activate is calm, clear-headed, laser-focused action. It's being in the flow. It's taking the next step from our positive emotions. Those are your 5 sage powers. And I went through them very quickly, but if you step into the deeper program we're going to talk about here at the end of the presentation, you'll get to dive into these sage powers even more deeply and learn how to put them into practice on a daily basis. So this brings us to our operating system, which is quite simple. So if you wait till I get to the end of this slide, take a screenshot. This becomes your guide you can use stepping forward from this presentation. So number 1, if you're feeling negative emotions, stop, you're in saboteur mode. That's the grabbing. Do some PQ reps to quiet saboteurs and activate sage. Assume the sage perspective that every problem can be converted into a gift an opportunity, and generate the gift by using 5 sage powers of empathize, explore, navigate, innovate, and activate. So grab a quick snapshot of this slide. This is your guide of using the positive intelligence operating system from the moment you step forward from our session together today. So with that in mind, I'd love it if you in chat would put what would be different if you were able to be more in command of your mind. And if you're watching this on recording, please write that down for yourself too. What would be different if you were able to be more in command of your mind? We have live life to the fullest as a protagonist. I love that. Greater focus and productivity without the stress. More opportunities, calm. I hear calm a lot. I would be more focused on important projects. I would make wiser decisions. I would have greater joy. I would have connectivity. Guess what? It's all possible because you have the tool set to make it possible. But you might be wondering, is it really possible to shift from saboteur to sage, even in tough challenges? I know what I want. I just shared it with you. I know what I want, but is it possible? Yes, but the speed and depth of that shift, your ability to get to that outcome, depends on your mental muscle strength. And what we know about lasting positive change is that it requires 2 components. First is insight. 20% of lasting change is insight. It is sessions like this, is reading a book, listening to a podcast, attending a training session. Insight is wonderful, and you need insight to get you into action. But when you stop at insight alone, anything you learn is going to die on the vine. It might last for a week, maybe 2, maybe a month if you're lucky, but beyond that, you'll forget. So 80% of lasting change is actually about building a mental muscle. It's about doing a daily practice that will get you into a space where you're truly reprogramming your brain. You're truly reprogramming yourself from being in that negative automatic response to a positive automatic response. And this is what the science shows us. It takes 2 minutes, 3 to 5 times a day over the course of 6 to 8 weeks to have those neurons take a different pathway. It takes 6 to 8 weeks for you to decrease those negative thinking patterns and strengthen the neural pathways that go to the positive area of your brain. 2 minutes, 3 to 5 times a day for 6 to 8 weeks. You know, I was up for that at the beginning of 2020, and it made a huge difference in my life. So we've gotten to the part where we are going to talk about the program, but I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment before I do that and give you just a little personal testimony about positive intelligence from my seat. So I told you that I was introduced to positive intelligence at the beginning of 2020. Now, in March of 2020, when many of you were probably preparing for the global pandemic to set in, it was that very day, March 13th, 2020, that my father received a vascular dementia diagnosis. And being in the throes of this work, I couldn't help but to think, my goodness, I wonder if my dad's chronic stress about work and life led to this dementia diagnosis. He was never satisfied at work. He was always stressed about his boss or his coworkers, and he brought that home with him. And so I dug into the research, even though intuitively it told me that this was happening. And study after study shows that chronic stress can lead to the release of hormones that can end up turning into diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's. And that was the reality my family was facing. And so all of a sudden, I had a really big, deeper why for digging into my own mental fitness, because I could see the deterioration of my father. Now, his health declined very, very rapidly. And by September of 2020, he was living full-time in a memory care facility. And in January of 2022, my dad passed away. So less than 2 years later, and he was only 68 years old. And so I do this work. I show up and I do sessions like this, and I encourage people like you to focus on your mental fitness, because I'm convinced that if he had these tools, if he knew how to manage that chronic stress, I think he would have found greater fulfillment. I think he would have found greater joy. He might not have developed that disease. That's my why for doing the work. You're going to hear Doug's in a second, but first, let me tell you about the work we do at Positive Intelligence. Let me tell you where you can go from here, because we want to be with you on the journey. I want every one of you to live well past my dad's 68 years. And, I've learned how to turn this into something positive for myself. And I hope bringing it to you is doing that. We have an app guided program that focuses on the following. So over the course of 6 weeks, you focus on building that self-command muscle. You do that in week 1. You learn how to do all kinds of PQ reps. And in weeks 2 and 3, you focus on that saboteur interceptor muscle, that catching. And then finally, in weeks 4 to 6, you build up that sage muscle. And the program continues for a full year. So you get to apply this to concepts like leadership and parenting and resilience to help you in the space you are in your life. Well, the way we do this program is is asynchronous and peer guided, peer supported as well. So you watch a weekly video. It's 45 to 60 minutes, delivered easily through an app. You watch it in little chunks at a time. Then you do daily focuses on coach challenges during your week. So you actually interrupt your day 4 times a day. You interrupt your busy day for 2 minutes only, and you focus on PQ reps. You focus on turning that insight into muscle. And this helps you get into that practice of strengthening your neural pathways to your positive side of your brain. You get access to what we call the PQ gym, where there's all kinds of ways to do PQ reps. So you can do those before you're heading into a big meeting, before you have an important interaction, or just to relax on a given day. You get the complete Positive Intelligence audiobook, and there are accountability meetings. And the 2 coaches who are going to be leading those accountability meetings are on the call today. And we're very, very grateful for their leadership and their experience to help guide you through this program. We also allow you to keep track for those who want to make sure you're making progress. This is a way to do that. And we've had participants tell us that they're having great outcomes. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but 90% are using their mental and emotional energy more effectively. 91% are managing their stress better. And look at the last one, 97% are improving their empathy and their emotional intelligence. Pretty incredible after only 6 weeks of practice that those things become possible. So we're inviting you to join us on the journey. And my colleague Malia is here, and she can help answer questions about the specific journey. But we're enabling everyone within the Global Chamber to participate in this program because we believe it's going to help you get to those long-term goals you have, both individually and collectively as a global tribe. So feel free to take a look at here. Our program will begin on March 25th. We'll accept your signups through March 17th. Much more detail is on that website. So definitely scan this and take a look. And as soon as you sign up, you will very quickly after that get access to the app. So you can get a head start and listen to the book. You can practice in the gym, and you'll be ready to go when March 25th rolls around. So with that, I have completed my portion of the presentation and would love to invite Doug back up to talk a little bit more about his personal experience and why he feels like this is such a good fit for the Global Chamber.
Thank you, Natalie. I'll preface it by saying that I'm a chemical engineer originally, and I'm skeptical about everything. I'm also from New York, so that's probably a contributor. So when I heard about this, typically, it's like, okay, yeah, well, that's interesting. But it took me a little while to kind of absorb, but I had a good feeling about it, and definitely good enough to start the program. And about 3 weeks in, I had an epiphany. So doing the daily activity, it sounds like, I don't know, when you go through it, Natalie, now I think I was registering, it wasn't really as significant as I know that it is when I think about it at a macro level, all the different programs I've ever tried. I would rate probably Myers-Briggs as the number one most effective thing I've ever done. But I would say on a scale of 0 to 100, everything else I've ever done besides Myers-Briggs is less than a 1. And Myers-Briggs would probably be a 20. And this is about a 100. It's like not even close, because it's not just useful information, but the daily activity is so significant to keep you moving forward. So my epiphany was riding my bike 3 weeks in, listening to Shirzad on my headphones, listening to his story and listening to the saboteurs and the thought processes. I realized I was thinking differently. And when I did the original test, I was at 50%. And you can take that test as well. Half the time my brain was helping me, half the time it was holding me back. But I felt different. I felt, even while I was riding my bike, listening to all this. So I stopped my bike. I called Malia. She wasn't available. So I rode home. I took the test again, and I was now at 2 to 1, 2 times positive to 1 negative. I think you should be a 3 to 1. So I wasn't where I need to be. However, that was huge, and I could feel it, and that was extraordinary. The saboteur insights also, for me, being a hyperachiever and realizing what that is, and that it's always going to be there. That's okay, but allowing the sage to come in and to ease that out when it needs to has been really critical to me. And then finally, I would say the last thing that's really been significant is that part, Natalie, that you mentioned about the sage, that every outcome is okay. When I think about all the things in my life that have impacted me significantly, certainly the great things like my marriage of 41 years, my daughter being born, my grandson recently being born, those have all been amazing and significant. But also the hugely terrible things that have happened have also played a key role in my life. The death of my grandfather, in fact, suicide by my grandfather, my mentor. The death of my father moved me into becoming an entrepreneur, and both of my wife's parents passing away. The daily interactions with them were amazing, and having them pass away is hurtful, but remembering them has been so significant, especially my father-in-law, who, when my therapist talks to me, she says, channel Harold. My father-in-law is an amazing guy, channel Harold. And I still remember him almost every day. So those are the things that the system has brought to me. And I think the point of the daily exercising and the PQ reps, I don't do the fingertips. I do fingers underneath my nose and feel my mustache. And whenever I get a little bit tense, my wife says, why don't you go feel your mustache? And I do, and I feel a lot better. So thank you, Natalie, for sharing that. And I really do hope that I think the global tribe will be more receptive to this than a normal person, in the sense that global tribe tends to be more mindful and more thoughtful and more evolved. That may not come off the right way to say it, but I would think that most of the people doing global business have managed through life at a high level. This will take you to the next level. And so thank you, Natalie, for sharing today. And I sure hope a lot of folks within the global tribe take advantage of this.
Wonderful, Doug. We are so, so grateful to be partnering with you on this. It's a very, very exciting start to what we hope is a long journey with the Global Chamber and your tribe. And I know we have a couple minutes left, and I told them I might put them on the spot, but I think it'd be great if Connie and Andrea can just say a quick hi. They're going to be faces that are going to be with you if you decide to continue the journey, and we'd just love for you to come and say hi and what you look forward to sharing with your colleagues from Global Chamber as they venture into this mental fitness journey with you. Connie, do you want to start?
You're welcome, everybody, and I welcome you into the happy high achiever world. That's what PQ does for people.
That's wonderful, Connie. That's wonderful. And I too want to welcome everyone into the PI community. I mean, it has been, I feel so fortunate to be part of this. And Doug, thank you so much for opening this up to the Global Chamber and everyone else involved. And I look forward to coaching you in starting your journey and downloading the app. You know, one of the things that we used to say, and I'm sure Doug remembers this, is this is going to blow your mind, man. And I think it does in a really positive way. So I really want to welcome everyone, and I hope you'll take this opportunity.
Thank you so much for your energy and your impromptu. It's wonderful. And Doug, I will turn it over to you then to either close us out or to bring forth any questions that you think might be prevalent for your members.
Great. No, thank you very much. Thank you, and to Malia and to Connie and to you, Andrea, as well. Does anybody have any questions? I'll just open it up. I've seen some comments, and I don't know if Demetris may not be in the call anymore. Okay, so Demetris, I'll follow up separately. Dwight, thank you for joining in from Saudi Arabia. And Malia, I don't know whether you can mention anything. Would be great to hear from you as well. I see Mijong and Michelle, Michelle Hawkins. So Michelle Hawkins, she joined the chamber a few months ago, and she and I have known each other for many years. And so after one of our events, I think it was after that innovation event, we were sitting up at the pub at the top of Global Chamber, and she says, you know, you're different. And I use that example, Michelle, with other people. It's like, well, great. I mean, I do feel different. And it's the fact that somebody else recognizes it too. That's pretty cool. Roy, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, Doug, that in a few short days, I turned 72. I've just finished up my first year in Saudi Arabia, returning to the Middle East after those many years in Kuwait. Working full time as if I was still in my 40s and 50s. So and I want to look at this more closer, because I always feel like, being a lifelong learner, that there's something that I can always do even at this stage in life, because I'm not about ready to hang the boots up.
Great. No, that's super. It's, I think it's something that everyone can benefit from. Eventually, I'd love to have, everyone in my family to do it. And hopefully through what they see in me and the changes that have happened in me or happening. I mean, it's not like, you suddenly change. It's an evolution. These saboteurs are always there, and they always reel up. And in my case, I'm very good at responding to things like very quickly. And that's not always a good thing to do. You should just be quiet, just let things flow over you. And I'm still learning how to do that. I don't do that still very well. But the only way I feel like I'll ever get to where I want to be is through the system here. So thank you, Dwight. Definitely take a closer look. And for all of you, I would say, if you have any questions about it, let us know. I don't exactly know what the next steps will be, other than we'll put this in a blog post. We'll have the recording available. How exactly you sign up, it's still a little bit gray to me, but hopefully, it'll become clear in the blog post, or maybe over the next couple days. The next 2 weeks will be critical, because we really do want to have this first wave of global tribers in over the next couple weeks. And so be part of that cohort wherever you are in the world. I think, Natalie, one question I would have is, since some of the people who couldn't make it today are in, for instance, Asia, can people from other parts of the world still participate even though they're in different time zones?
Yeah, absolutely. We are prepared for this to be a global engagement, and we'll support it as such. So, as we see people sign up across the different geographies, we'll make sure that they're supported accordingly. But we are definitely open for business across the entire world. And Malia, what would you add? I know that there some questions and you've been putting some things in chat that those who are watching the video might not be able to see. So point us in the right direction, Malia.
Well, thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Doug. And happy to be here, Malia Monaco with Positive Intelligence. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. You can go to the landing page, which is positiveintelligence.com/global chamber. So there's lots of opportunities. I put a lot of FAQs on the very bottom, so that'll help, especially with the sticklers, to be able to kind of read through all the details. And then I'm happy to assist with any questions. I didn't see anything super specific, but I do want to highlight one thing is that there's a bonus seat access. So just as Doug mentioned, family, we're gifting a family member access seat as well. So you'll participate as well as a family member. And that's so powerful when it comes to family systems theory and supporting yourself through transformation. So please know that it's like a bonus seat access. And my email is Malia, MALIA @positiveintelligence.com. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. I think so. The details we'll put in that blog post, and that includes the discount to be able to do this. I think it's a 1 year, right, in terms of being part of this, and you get the family discount as well. And so we'll wrap all of that up. Are there anything else, Malia or Natalie, that people should know relative to the next steps?
And all the details are on the landing page. There's the sign up, click register here to, like you said, take advantage of the special discount. And then following your sign up, one of our team members will enroll you in the program, and you'll get a very detailed email with all of your appropriate next steps and to add things to your calendar in terms of our group meetings and a kickoff session that we'll be doing on March 22nd.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, I would say, very excited for all of this. Thank you, ladies. All of you are ladies for pulling this all together. And I think
Demetrius came back and has a question.
Oh, Demetrius. Hey, how are you? Welcome back.
Good morning. Good morning.
I see your hand down. Sorry.
Good morning to most. I guess good evening to some. This is my brain is going really, really fast trying to understand all of this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a saboteur. Okay. So here's my question. I just went to sign up. Is there a different code, or is it 597? Is that what I'm signing up for? That's okay. All right. That was my question. Have a great day, you guys.
Yay. Thank you.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you, Demetrius.
Yeah.
I saw your notes through there, and so I'm glad you're engaged, and you're a perfect candidate. The folks in the global tribe, as I mentioned, I think are open to getting to the next level. We want to change the world. We want to have an impact. We want to be more successful. We'll always not have enough time. So how can we get there in a faster way and be more effective? And having your brain support you and understanding your saboteurs, and I don't know if they ever work for you, but at least when you know that they're there. I think your point, Natalie, on that saboteurs are actually good to a certain level. I hadn't fully put my brain around that. They're good. They've gotten us where we are in many cases, but when they go overboard, it can be tricky. Something in the book really hit me, especially like falling in love. When you fall in love with your mate, what's really kind of happening is at the sage level, you're making a connection, right? But then what happens after 6 months or a year, the saboteurs sneak in there, right? And you get these weird arguments and bad vibes and bad karma that happens. And having been now married for almost 41 years, stuff happens, to be able to keep that continuity. But what I feel really good about is that by understanding all of that, and hopefully elevating to the sage level when, on a frequent level, that initial excitement of why you got together and that why you are together from a love perspective can shine through all of the nonsense. Because nonsense does happen, and saboteurs are nonsense. They can be really kind of crazy, and staying ahead of those is really important. And it works in love, it works in friendships, it works at work every single day. And I think hopefully most of you will see that. So Natalie, that's all I had. Any additional final comments, either from any of you, from Natalie or Malia or Connie or anyone?
So Doug, it made me think of what we call mirror neurons, and that's a neuropsychology term. And if we can stay in sage as best we can, we're going to activate that sage part of the brain in those we're around. So it's a sage contagion, the positive contagion, versus when we get sabotaged and hijacked, it's going to bring up the saboteurs in the others. And so we want to be able to, once we're making changes in ourselves, there's a ripple effect, and we want to definitely support that. So
the cycle that I get into is, I'll respond to something because of my saboteur will say something and I want to say it. And then what comes back is their saboteur, right? And kind of like you're going back and forth. And actually, one of the most insightful comments I've gotten is from the guy who does my hair. And so I was explaining all this, and he's a very evolved person. He said, when I was going through something like this, what I taught myself is just not to respond, just to listen. So this saboteur that wants to say something, don't do it. And that's hard. That is really, really hard, right? So, but the only way you'd ever get there would be through something like this. I don't see how you could do it. Myers-Briggs is great, but I'm not sure it really teaches you like how to get to the next level, right? It's informative. This is informative and moves you forward. And I've personally never seen anything like it to be able to get you to the next level. So, and you can see all of these ladies here are all very evolved at levels that we all aspire to. So thank you for speaking today, for going through this, for explaining more about it. And we'll certainly be counting on you going forward in support of the global tribe. Thank you all.
And Andrea has her hand up really quick to wrap us out, it looks like.
Andrea.
Yes.
What would you like to say in final closing?
I just want to assure folks, it's kind of like Yoda, right? I always think, do not try. One of the first things I got when I started my mental fitness training was in the first couple of weeks was this was not a matter of trying. And how often are we trying? Oh, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. You don't got to try. You just make the effort to do the PQs and to listen and to go through it. And even now, after so long of having been in positive intelligence, I listen to my app and I just do them. And there's no try. And that happens, that sage growth just happens as you go along through the program and do it. And that's what I really wanted to affirm to everyone. This is not about trying and having to do something else. This happens as you go through the program and make the effort to just do the effort. That's all.
That's a really good point. It's really easy to do. I mean, you have to make the time, and there are a couple days, like in the first week or so of this, I was behind. But then when I caught up, I was actually like always caught up. Cesar and I would go back and forth. And he was ahead of me, and then I was ahead of him, and then we kind of went there. The other thing that I thought of when you were going through your explanation there was somewhere in the book, I think it says something about like for physical fitness. If you read a book on physical fitness, it doesn't make you physically fit. And that's how almost everything mentally I've ever read makes me feel, that you have to now do something after you read it. This actually gives you the information you need, and it walks you through that process, and it just happens. You don't have to do really anything other than just be engaged. And that's kind of cool. You wouldn't become physically fit by just reading a book, and you won't become mentally fit by reading Shirzad's book, but you will by going through the program. So thank you, Andrea, and all of you. So I think that brings us to the end, unless there's anyone else that has their hand raised. Thank you all for attending today. And if you're on the recording, go to, I would say, where should we have people go? Because we'll have a blog post, but before we end the program, ladies, where should we have people go to take the next step?
So the next step is the landing page, which you'll learn all the details, and the QR code's here. So it's positiveintelligence.com/global chamber.
Very simple. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Malia. Thank you to all of you, Connie as well, and to Andrea. We look forward to working with you over the next weeks and months and years as part of a more successful global tribe. Thanks, everybody.